week 3 of our new video podcast. I'm super excited to be talking to Mary Russell. We have had the privilege of working together a lot lately, and I'm super excited about talking to you for a bunch of reasons. I had a really hard time narrowing down the topic, so we are actually going to talk about a few different things, I'm hoping. One of the things I thought would be really great is if you could explain your role and what you do.
I am a child and family counselor. I work with the Suquamish tribe, but I also work in private practice.
And the population that you work with, you work with lots of different people, don't you?
Yeah, but mostly families and kids, and I have a lot of clients. The kids are transgender, and a lot of kids that have trauma-related needs, and a lot of kids in various spots in foster care or adoption.
And the work that we have done together, one of the topics I'm just going to launch right into is we had the work I do now as a regulation and resilience coach. I love it when I have the opportunity to not only work with a family and kids, but to also work in conjunction with a mental health professional in supporting a family and kids. And that has been something we have gotten to do. And I love that. And I thought we could talk a little bit about how we work together to support a family and what the difference between therapy and coaching is.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So maybe you could talk about how you support families as a start, and then how I get involved as a support to that.
Yeah. I think that you are the first regulation coach, mentor kind of person that I've gotten to work with. And I wish that every kid that I worked with had a TIF for sure. But yeah, my role is to meet the kid and assess where the kid and the family are at, and assess what's occurred in the past. So a lot of times with kids, I'm getting stacks of paperwork from from courts and foster care agencies. So kind of compiling this history and then sorting out what we can tell this kid has been through, and then what would be helpful now, and working with the parent on making space for both helping this kid process what they've endured and how do we parent, how can I coach you in parenting this child now with what they have going on, and making lots of room through play for the kids to process their trauma.
And you've pretty much stay, for kids that are in the foster care system, you will stay with the kiddo, right? You'll move with them.
Yeah.
From placement to placement often.
Yeah, I have kids who've been through 7 placements, and I'm the one constant.
Yeah. Which is so important. And then, so we have come to work together when I have gotten called to support a kiddo at home in crisis. So I sometimes will get called in to support a family in the home. In the first, originally, that's sometimes how I get in touch with a family, is there will be identified attachment and trauma related challenges, and I come in as somebody who has been there and has been through the experience of learning the nuances of parenting a child with attachment and trauma related stuff, and work with parents to kind of make the paradigm shifts and understand what the different kind of needs are and what approaches work with kids, and then work with kids to sort of get regulated and build resilience at home. And it's really great when we get to work together, because then it feels like we've got this holistic approach to support a family that I know I would have loved to have, or I did love when I did have that. I did have that early on for my kids, but it was really hard to come by.
Yeah.
So that's been a really neat thing. And I know that for myself, one of the things that made me really excited about having you on this, whatever this is, on this video podcast, is that you are a mental health professional that really understands the impact of trauma on neurology, and that behavior is brain-based. And I think that that is part of what makes it's a lot of what makes their behavior so much different. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how those brain-based differences translates into how kids play.
Yeah, well, all kids are communicating a story about their internal world when they're playing. And my belief is that people are really wired to heal. So when I am watching kids play in session, or just everywhere in the world that you get to see kids play, which they're always doing, they're trying to sort through something. And I would say for some kids with trauma-related needs, some kids and like even at different ages, like 3, 4, and 8, like I'm seeing kids that kind of don't know how to play. Like they didn't have the opportunity to. There was so much chaos and danger that they were kind of in the frozen part of the trauma response and didn't have opportunities, or were parentified really young. They had to be little adults pretty early on.
Yeah.
So sometimes with kids, it's almost like I'm teaching them how to play, or not teaching them. I'm like getting the things out of the way that get in the way of their innate knowing, right? It usually comes out. They get into it, right? Or figuring out the way that they do play. Like the playroom with toys is too overwhelming, but maybe that kid more outside, you can see the play come out, like if you kick a ball or
Right. This is just a question that's always on my mind. I wonder if other parents have struggled with this. I know for me, for example, and I'm just gonna say, for me, there were certain areas of play that when my daughter, and we've talked about this now, she's an adult, but that when there were certain ways that she played and certain things that she played that really got to me, like it was hard for me. I had a really hard time with it. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, I think that it can be really good when you're teamed up with a therapist early on and you're articulating this. I think there's a lot of way that play can be hard for adults, and that your sense of like, this thing is too much for me, to really honor it, and have language around like, this is a really good activity to do with your counselor, right? Because a lot of the like violence kind of shuts parents down. Sometimes kids they'll be sexually acting out with toys, and it's overwhelming to the kids. Really those are the two, the violence and the sexual acting out, and those are great for the therapist to wrap into their treatment.
Yeah.
And you're being authentic with your kid, and because your kid can read when you get uncomfortable. So you're all of a sudden tensing up, or you kind of stop breathing. Your kid can feel that. So it helps them attune to themselves and realize you're attuned to them when you're like, wow, like this is a really good part of the play to take to your session on Tuesday.
Yeah. I wish I had known that, because really with my daughter, it was really around dolls, when she was playing with dolls.
Yeah.
That dolls or Barbies or something like that. I just had this body response of, it just got to me, because and what I realized for me, what it was that her way of playing with dolls was having power over them.
Okay.
And it wasn't anything specific. It was just the general way that she played with dolls was very power over, and it really did put me into a different state. It did. So and I didn't know then what was going on for me then, but I did end up finally talking to a therapist about it, But honestly, if I'm being really transparent, I really tried to avoid her playing with dolls, you
Yeah.
know? And I really regret that. I feel like that was a really bad call on my part early on. I wish I had known better, because now that I know so much more about brain development and recovery, I know that that play was so important for
Yeah.
her, right? And that
But it was also good that you listened to yourself and you weren't, because like we're saying, if you weren't fully there, so it's worse off if kids can feel it's like struggling through something because they could perceive it as you're not delighting in me
right.
when really you're triggered, likely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great like segue into the idea of parents getting triggered, like just parents getting triggered in general, and being able to learn how to manage when you get triggered,
Yeah,
right?
I think there's so much um I like the community that you're in where people get to talk about that, like be really honest about what's hard about parenting.
Yeah.
And but I see all these things that are like why it's important to play with your kid, and I don't hear people addressing why it really sucks to play sometimes, And a lot of people really hate it. And it does bring up a lot. And I think for people who have trauma, adults who have trauma or weren't allowed to play as kids, um, it's like they don't know how to play and they don't know how to let go. And if you have parents with addiction stuff, it can be really hard to let go of being serious, because that is the best way you knew how to feel validated, was to be hyper serious. So somebody needing to play with you, it creates this inner turmoil. Um, and kids can feel it.
Absolutely. And I think you saying that, just, so many people that I know, and even myself included, there are certain things. I think it's such a broad thing too. You
Mhm.
don't know what is going to trigger you, or what part
Right.
of it is going to
Yeah.
get to you. As a kid, I was a very fearful child. Like, I was a very cautious and fearful child. My daughter, however, super adventurous and adventure seeking and risk seeking. So when it came to things that required risk, you know, and she was all in and ready to take risk, I would get really scared,
Yeah.
and I would have to, like for example, riding a bike. I did not expect that it was going to be a like total problem for me to teach her how to ride a bike. But
Mhm.
it was. I had to walk away. My husband was like, "You go inside now." Like, "You go inside now. I'm teaching her
Yeah.
how to ride a bike." Because it was like I just became this like
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It can be the certain activity. It can also be the age that they are. So, and your kid being 9, just them being 9 can activate any wounding you had at 9, or every unfinished business you have from being 9. So it's like really anything becomes an opportunity to be triggered, which
yeah,
which hopefully that understanding can give us even more capacity for understanding that for kids, like anything can be a trigger to them, you know.
right. And I think too, another thing along those lines that I noticed that a lot of parents get kind of stuck in. I think when our kids are doing, saying, playing in ways that are that bring up things for us, that's when we get locked down as parents, right? That's when we're under that stress, that's when we are not as skillful. That's you know
Well, and also yeah, exactly. And to add to that, I think a lot of times with people who are raising kids who are going to like struggle more in the world, there's like this protectiveness where you're like, I want my kid, we're animals and we want our kid to fit in the pack so they don't get pushed out of the pack and starve. It's like it's very this primal response. So if our kids being what we perceive as like super weird or super difficult in play, we want to like clamp down on it. We're like, I want you to be accepted in the world. So if kids are being like harsh or weird or really competitive, or like you're saying with your daughter, it was like her power over stuff, when really she needed to go through that cycle so she would do it less in the world. Like that was her spot to do it, and I'm sure she found other ways, so you shouldn't regret it.
Oh yeah.
They will find another way. They will.
Yeah, I know that now.
If we can just let our kids be a little bit terrible in the play or a little bit violent, if it's like, sometimes it's like if they can get it out here, it's like maybe they saw violence in their life or they saw it in a game and they need to get it out so it doesn't come out another way with another kid.
Yeah, and I think that's so great to hear a professional give that perspective, because I think as parents we go, oh, they're playing like that, they're going to do that for real. Right?
Yeah, because there's a pressure to play and be a fun parent, but you also have the pressure to teach a social skill, and it's hard to know when to do which.
It absolutely is. You're right. Yeah. That's like trigonometry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard.
But my recommendation to parents would be do the play and then do the social skill.
Yeah.
About violent video games.
What about that? He asked about violent video games.
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, does that go along with the same idea?
I don't know. I think that they kind of work for some kids. It seems, I don't know. I don't quite have an answer to that one, because I noticed that it seems cathartic for some kids, and then some kids kind of get stuck in it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's family by family?
I think it's brain by brain.
Brain by brain. That's a good way to say it, yeah.
You know, I think a lot of kids that, there are some kids that what I've observed is that some kids can't do it at all. And it just activates complete dysregulation, complete focus on you immediately after the game, you see and hear exactly what's in the game. And then some kids are able to separate it and it not do that for them. Some kids, it's a, like you said, it's almost a regulator. If it's not.
For some kids, it's like, I got to have control this time. So it can be cathartic.
Yeah. And then some kids, it's all about how much time, like if it's not too long or if it's not, it's, or the timing in the day, like if it's, I think there's just a lot of nuance to that.
Yeah. Brain by brain.
Yeah. I work with parents, and I know you work with parents a lot on new approaches and different approaches because of different neurology, right? Mm-hmm. Or addressing neurology in a different way because the neurology is different.
Yeah.
But then under stress, going back to those feelings that you were talking about before of, I want my kid to fit in.
Yeah.
And any, ideas and tips for sort of breathing through that or recognizing when they're doing that and how to get through that?
Yeah. I think well, it's tricky in this time of COVID where parents they're on duty all day, and they used to be on duty for 6 hours at the end of the day or something. So such a difference now. But I think as much as parents can pause and get regulated first. So it can be helpful with kids if there is for some kids neurology, a structured playtime. So this is me and you, it's our special playtime. It doesn't even actually have to be super long. But before, if parents can't, like I've even had a parent be like, I just had to drink coffee before. Like I just wasn't bringing any enthusiasm to it, or my trauma made it so I went kind of like, I would kind of shut down before. So I just kind of need to get myself in the game.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to do to get regulated. Breathe.
Right.
Kind of comfort. I mean, if you're working with a therapist, then you can comfort your, or on your own, you can comfort your little kid parts that are getting activated in the play. Because we actually really have an opportunity to heal with our kids.
Which is pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. Yeah, they'll bring to light anything that's theirs.
They are gifted in that.
Yes.
For sure. I
yeah.
did not even know that it was good. I mean, you don't even know things that are gonna.
Yeah. No stone left unturned. Is that what this saying is? It's like,
Yes, yes. Um, also wondered about in terms of play therapy, how if you're a parent and you're seeing your kids maybe do or say alarming things during play, what to do about that? Because I have that happen. I get that question a lot as a coach. Like, what do? I saw them say this or do this thing.
yeah, if you were to the point where it kind of makes you freeze, then be like, I'm really glad, but greet it with like this openness, like, I'm so glad you brought that, or I'm so glad you said that, and that's a great question, or that's a great thing to bring to your counselor person.
Yeah. And if they don't have one, that might be the time to look for one.
That might be the time to look for one. Yeah, if you notice you're hitting a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas or suggestions for people who maybe recognize that they have a hard time playing?
Yeah.
Like how to get started? Because I know that I have a lot of parents that tell me I don't play. I just don't play.
Yeah. And it's like, I think it is, some cultures don't play with kids, and those kids are grown to miraculous adults. I don't think that it's totally necessary. It is kind of unavoidable, but a good starting point is just try and find some common ground. Anything that you share interest in, you can, if imaginative play is where you get lost, then you can pick something more structured. Like, I took 10 of your toys and I wrapped them in newspaper and I hid them around the house, and then go find them. And so you just have to sit in the chair and be like, whoa, you did it, and the kids looking and coming back to you, and they can see you set this up, you're enthusiastic, right? But you are not getting in whatever state imaginative play puts you in. So I mean, maybe journal about what kind of play you like, what you don't like. I would journal a little bit about what playing for you was like as a kid.
So are you suggesting then that parents maybe give some thought to what was play like for you as a kid? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Or like what would be something you could do? And does it really even need to be super structured?
No, I don't think so. I think it can be. Yeah, I think for me, what I've seen with a lot of parents who've had a block is that just having somebody say, a lot of people don't like playing, and it can be connected to something you're like, just the acknowledgement helps people turn the page. They're like, I played every day this week, So just if parents would give themselves a moment to acknowledge, yeah, this is kind of terrible. I've seen people turn the page pretty quick.
And here's another question, like in two-parent homes, because of course sometimes it's just a one-parent home. But in two-parent homes, is it totally okay if one parent is the play parent?
I think so.
Is it? Yeah. I just wonder about that. If it's okay. If it really is important that you have that play connection with both parents, if one of them.
The play is important because kids build, they're using their muscles and brains. They are, but there's a lot of self-esteem building that actually happens in play that I think that some adults don't know about. So when a kid is like, this cup is a rocket ship, and you're like, rocket, like amazing rocket ship or whatever, we're all in the rocket ship. you joining in their kid world is such an like a self-esteem booster, right?
Yeah. Because
So
for them,
there's other ways to do that kind of boosting, like that kind of like joining. That if you are not particularly the one that's going to play, there's other ways to do that, but that is important.
so is the idea that really for kids, play is their work? Like, so we're like, play is their work. So when we're affirming their work and praising their work,
Mm-hmm.
we're that's building their self-esteem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never kind of thought of it that way. What you're describing there is that what I think of is a circle of security, and how it talks about attunement and delighting in their presence, and that whole looking back and seeing that we've got this reciprocal connection and I get you and
Yeah,
you
and I kind of like the parent-child interaction therapy. They encourage this playtime with kids that is basically, so parents are coming in and they're like, my kid won't listen to me, and then they're like, help me give this kid consequences. And we want to kind of interrupt that and go back and say, if you build a relationship, if you work on the attachment piece, then you're actually going to, your kid will listen to you more naturally because the relationship is stronger, right? So, and in that, so parents are given the coaching around this kind of special playtime, and that playtime is, it's brief, it's like 5 minutes a day, and it's creative play, and it's there's, you get a box of toys, and they're not toys that have a prescribed way to play, so the kid could play however with them.
oh wow,
So not like a coloring book, but maybe just a sheet with crayons or blocks or something that can be used in any way.
got it.
So when the kid starts playing, you're copying the kid, right? So if they're using a crayon this way, you're using the crayon that way. And what it really starts to build is kids are noticing like, oh, I have good ideas. I'm a valuable person that somebody wants to be by. And like they're an adult modeling what they're doing after me, like, wow.
That's so great. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, it's really lovely.
So Mary, can you talk about the importance of praise?
Yeah, well, kids are in kids' younger years, you're very developmentally, you are building your identity. You are like, I am the center of the world, right? So if the world around you is not working, like you're losing a home, people are being violent, people are being scary, kids can start to develop a story. Maybe there's something wrong with me, because developmentally their job is to be very focused on themselves, right? They are not quite at a spot where they can say, oh, that's because addiction is very complicated, or right, these things that we can know later on to be true, right? Poverty is brutal for families, like we can know these later on, but as a kid you're like, oh, I might be broken. So if a kid who has endured that, if you get a chance, and anything is a chance to start to reset that narrative, it's like the tape that's playing in their head. And before it gets formed, it's kind of this question, like, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I'm broken. So while that's still a question, if we have a chance to say, no, that's not it, you're phenomenal, look at all of this, we have a chance to interrupt that becoming their story of who they are.
That is amazing. And I think that I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that's such an important thing for parents to realize, because I think we do make the mistake of not realizing that our kids have the capacity to understand and think like adults, you know? And especially, I think we often have the idea that kids who have moved from placement to placement or been in foster placements, that they have this beyond their years knowing and understanding, and they do, but they also don't, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that they might have had these way advanced experiences. So in some ways, they have insights, profound insights that people their age do not usually have, but then they also still have, whatever age they are, brains that still have perspectives and thoughts at that age too,
Yeah.
and even younger sometimes too.
Yeah.
So it's hard because it gets really confusing. And I think that that's one of the things that, for me in my parenting journey, one of the things that I have had to adjust is not only my expectations, and I'm talking about that all the time. And I know that anybody who is parenting a child with some trauma related needs, I think that that is something that you learn pretty early on, that you have to adjust your expectations, right? But I think that adjusting your expectations is one thing, but adjusting your lens and adjusting how you see your child's gifts is a whole other thing. And that's something you and I have talked about a lot. Do you want to speak to that some?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really understanding development and trauma will help you understand that if you say to a kid with no trauma, like, oh, I'm so frustrated, I didn't take the dog food, or like feed the dog, right? That kid can hear, I'm really frustrated you didn't feed the dog. And a kid with trauma and abandonment and neglect is going to hear this, here's more proof you're unlovable. So you can get a kid that turns your house upside down, and because you brought up the dog food and these parents are like, oh, I just want this kid to feed the dog. And it's like, but what they experienced was you saying you're unlovable, which is intolerable. I couldn't tolerate that, you know?
No.
And I think that yeah, I like to think about like labeled praise. So being really specific about the praise. It's not like you did a good job, but like, I really appreciate how you contribute to the family, but for the skill of like totally delighting in a kid, I feel like I learned that the best from you and your husband, watching you guys with kids.
So nice.
Yeah, it's like that really helped me understand. I think it's something I naturally knew, but I feel like you guys could like be in the Guinness Book of Records about the things you can delight in. Just like, you know, these kids like destroying your car and you're like, this is so funny, this kid's so funny, and with like genuine delight. That I know those kids can feel, and it makes me so happy that this kid is doing this thing that somebody else could definitely give them response that'll feel like you are unlovable, and what they got from y'all was, you're so funny. You know?
Right. Well, I think that comes from really understand, like you said, really understanding brain development and understanding attachment and trauma. Like, it really getting to a place where when things happen, you really understand why they are happening.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Instead of being stuck in how it feels.
Yeah.
Happening.
Seeing the kid beyond the behavior.
Seeing the kid beyond the behavior.
Yes.
And that takes a lot of practice and time, you know?
Yeah. And the thing I wonder about, so here's my question for you, and I'll interview the interviewer.
That's fine.
It's like we were saying before about if you go into your, so for the adult, if you go into your story about play or your experience as a kid, then you can maybe bring more to your kid, right? I wonder about that with being able to delight in your kids. You're saying like you had to learn that in some ways. Did you also have to figure out how to delight in yourself?
Definitely. I definitely had to do my own work.
Like change your self-talk, or
For sure. And of course still there are things. I think I always had, I think what it starts with is having a lot of empathy for your child, right? And I think that most people who are parenting kids who have been through really tough things start out with with a lot of empathy for those things.
Yes.
And then the intensity and frequency of that behavior starts to get to them.
Yeah.
And they become kind of compassion fatigued, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes harder and harder to access sometimes. And I think that for me, the trick has been being able to stay in that place of remembering why the behavior is there,
Yeah.
and understanding that what actually works to change the behavior is
Mhm.
the opposite of what we all were taught works to change
Right.
behavior, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that, like, the way I always look at it now is, okay, when when I see in the face of dysregulation of any kind, there's
Mhm.
a window of opportunity to lay new neural pathways. And
Yeah.
if I can respond to that in a way that helps to lay neural pathways, then I'm helping and not harming.
Yeah.
And part of that means seeing the child for who they are and appreciating them for who they are and noticing who they are, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that that for us, and I think over the years, just working with so many kids, getting to see that in my own kids, my kids have said some of the most hilarious and profound and like
Yes, they have.
amazing things I've ever heard in my life. And then the kids I've worked with, the same thing is true,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that that's the reward and the joy of being around and working with kids and having kids in your life that have experienced trauma, is that they do have this depth that is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I would say for the kids I'm thinking of that I've seen you and Jay work with, I am amazed by how willing the kids are to accept this beautiful narrative of themselves, even though they've had so many situations where this negative thing is reinforced, right? And that's what I was saying earlier, like I really think we're wired to heal, like, you know, the whole world could be reinforcing this kid is just a bad kid, and then you all come in and you present this other possibility, and that kid's like, that's it, that's who I am.
That's right, I'm awesome.
Yeah, they're like, I knew it was that.
Yeah. I love that. I
Yes.
love seeing that. Yes. That is such a great thing when you see that, because, and it is really amazing how receptive to that kids are.
Yeah, once
And
it's there. Yes.
wow, once it's there, and if you can roll through the explosive, the big reaction, the all of it, and you
Right.
can stick with, yep, you're awesome. You are totally awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing how quickly they'll get back to, oh yeah, right, I am awesome. Right?
Yeah. So as I'm thinking about when you're saying what worked for you was really getting the point where you learned the brain science so well that you could stay rooted in, like, this is the truth of what's occurring neurologically, that helps you with kids. And in my dream as a therapist and like families healing together, because what I see sometimes with parents is I'm giving them that information about brains, and then I'm giving them the script, like I'll be like, say exactly this to the kid, and they're saying it, it's not landing in the same way. And that's the thing I'm curious about, is if those parents, my guess is for some of those parents, they're still being really hard on themselves and really cruel to themselves. They're not giving that same empathy and compassion to them. So how can they really give it? How can the kid really absorb it? So,
I
so my
think
dream would be the combination that they really learn why kids are acting the way they are and give themselves space to be human too. And
yes, I think you just totally honed in on. I think that it's those, I think it's that, and then the other thing, my added dream to that is that that ability to, I don't know, disregard, override, whatever you want to call it, the external pressure
Yeah.
to be the same.
Yes.
You know, because I think that's really what of everything else that helped me the very most was the point of surrender, when I just went, Uncle, we are not going to be the same.
Yeah.
We're not going to be the same, and it is okay.
Same, you and your kid, or you and other families?
Us and other families.
Yeah.
We are not going to look like every other family, and that is totally okay. As a matter of fact, it's even kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah, I think every parenting group I've done, when we explore triggers, most people's trigger is parenting in front of other people.
oh, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It is so hard. And I will say that I took care of kids. I was a nanny before I had kids. I have spent my entire adult life around kids. I had no idea how much judgment came with being a parent,
right,
until I actually became a parent.
Yeah.
And becoming a parent of children who do not behave like other children, like, that is a very big awakening. You know, it really is a very big thing. It's really hard.
Right,
And
you can feel that biological pressure to have your wolf not get pushed out of the pack. And so you crack down on your little wolf pup instead of like demanding that the world make room for these kids, which is really what we have to do. But it's hard in that moment when your kid is like throwing stuff in the gas station or something.
yes, it is. It is. And then, but just once you get to that place, I think that there's so much, and I tell this to parents all the time, there is so much freedom.
Yeah, the freedom.
So much freedom in just relaxing into the idea that, yep, we're not going to be doing things on the same developmental milestone as everybody else. We're going to be celebrating different milestones. Our, you know, what we celebrate is going to be different. It's all going to be different, and that is totally okay. One of the things I've said is that for us, you know, my daughter and I having a connection, we have a really close connection. We worked really, really, really beyond imagination hard for that connection. And that to me is like, you know, the highest honor at the highest Ivy League college in like
yes,
the whole world. Like, to me, it's like light years beyond that. That's like amazing to me. And the reward of that for me is so huge. Like, I really have this deep, deep celebration reward with that I think that a lot of people have difficulty understanding. But if you've parented a child with attachment and trauma related stuff, you really know that, what that's worth, right? That's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're all parenting under capitalism and in a society that is like racist and classist, and a lot of things that get celebrated are racist and classist, and you know, so it's, you get to do this radical thing when you celebrate these beautiful events that are just beautiful events.
I remember celebrating things like my daughter told the teacher that she had a problem with something. So she got scolded and she got told, just ignore it. But in our house, that was a celebration. She asked for help.
Yeah. She trusted an adult. Wow.
She trusted an adult. And
trusting an adult is amazing.
Right. And so being able and open to recognizing those things, I think is so important and so easily overlooked. Like you have to really be thinking to do that and
Yeah.
to remember what a feat it is for our kids to trust an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is like a superhero skill when
Right.
they are able to do it.
Right.
And
Yeah, against all odds, you were able to do this super risky thing all
yeah,
before lunch. You're amazing. Like,
yeah, you're amazing. And not only did you consciously decide to do that and against every experience you've ever had, but you biologically were able to override your own whole body fighting against you doing that whole thing.
right. Right. The alarm was going off and you did it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, those things are really huge. And I think that one of the things I really encourage parents to do is to not lose sight of that. And that even if they have done it a few times or they've gotten to do it a few times, still years later, it's still hard.
For sure.
Right? It doesn't necessarily, still under stress, all of us revert back to what we
Yeah.
originally were built to do, right?
Yeah.
So they do too.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, I know we could talk forever about that, but
About anything, probably.
yeah, about anything. So going back to the idea of unique gifts, the unique gifts and insights that the kids that we work with have. One of our mutual clients was talking recently, he's 5 years old. He was talking to his parent about why it was hard for him to say he's sorry. And he was saying, what he said, something that I thought was just amazing. He said to her, when I'm sad and scared, my volume button goes off.
So
With,
amazing.
I mean, the inside of that, I mean, can you speak a little bit to like what that must mean? I mean, he's 5 years old.
Yeah, like I wish I had like 50-year-old clients who could have that awareness, you know, like this is what happens to me in that moment. It's phenomenal. Like that deserves a parade for sure.
Right.
Because he was really getting what his adult was saying is, you really want an apology, and he's really saying, I am the kind of person who wants to be able to give an apology, right? And I'm noticing I can't. Like that's amazing. He can say, yes, I'm that person, I'm a good person, and I also see there's something in the way.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I'm sad and scared and my body just can't make it happen.
Right.
Like
Where it's a can't, not a won't. He's
right.
saying, I can feel this can't, and I can describe it beautifully.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that is like just so incredible. Right. And I know just to another thing like that, I know that once my daughter and I, well, our whole family was driving to do we were actually driving to a bio family visit. And my daughter was 6 years old, and we were driving to see her birth parent, and we had just watched Star Wars. Jay, because we're big Star Wars people, and Jay had just shown my daughter Star Wars, and she's looking out of the window and just like in deep thought, you know. And her birth mom had a boyfriend who at that time sort of all of the reasons for their removal were placed on him, you know, like he was for sure the focus from her perspective of why that happened. And so anyway, so she was staring out of the window just in deep thought, and we had this like 2-hour car ride, and I said, what are you thinking about, honey? And she goes, I was thinking about this person. And And I'm like, oh yeah, really? And she goes, yeah, I was thinking about how he's a lot like Darth Vader. And I'm like, oh, really? How so? And she goes, there, he does really bad things, but there's good in him.
Whoa.
I know, right? She was 6
How
years
beautiful.
old, you know?
Oh,
And she was on her way to visit, you know, and just in deep thought, thinking about that movie and comparing it to her life. And I'm thinking, do 6-year-olds do that?
great. Wow.
Compare whatever movie they're watching to their life, you know?
Yeah, I mean, kids get that's why kids get so much out of art and books and movies and stories, and
I mean, I
that
know
is the
they
best
think
way
that,
they can describe it.
right. Well, I mean, I always knew that they thought of themselves as the hero, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
But I didn't know how like the entire cast could be.
Right.
So it was pretty amazing. And there are so many things like that so many kids have said, you know, and then so many funny things.
Isn't the Wizard of Oz like that though? At the end, everybody in the Oz is someone in their life.
Yeah, that's true. At the
Yeah.
end of the Wizard of Oz. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. But yeah, I love that. And then too, I think how kids, uh, some kids that we've worked with in particular, one comes to mind in particular, who is so knowing about what he needs, like absolutely knows what he needs. All that has to happen really are the adults need to just listen.
Yeah.
Like, if the adults will listen, he will tell you exactly what he needs
Yeah.
to be okay in the world. And all of it is usually 100% reasonable.
Yeah.
Right?
Some of it's not doable. And even if it's not doable and you explain, you're right, that's reasonable, and it's not doable, he can even shift, which is
Take
like
it.
mind blowing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really phenomenal. And then one child also recently during all of this COVID stuff, who is in a group home setting. He's in total isolation right now, unfortunately, and that isn't, and the reason is because the staff capacity doesn't allow for the level of restriction that the kids need, and the number of staff in this COVID situation are requiring that he is alone in his room, pretty much doing video games most of the time, you know? Well, like 90% of the time. I mean, like, that's pretty much what he's doing. He's
Right.
not getting physical exercise, and he's not getting to do even online school. So he's not getting really any interaction with anybody else. And his caregiver that he knew from before, a really important person in his life, asked him, what is the first thing you're going to do when quarantine is over? And he said, I'm going to get a hug.
Oh,
And he is a 14-year-old,
right.
like, tough boy,
Right.
you know, who it's like that level of insight. I mean, I don't think that,
Yeah, he's like, I know who I am, I know what I need, and this is it.
yeah, it's not okay that I've gone this long without a hug. Like,
Not, he's right. Yeah.
right. It's amazing how, I think,
How,
insightful.
yeah, how much they know about themselves if people will listen.
Right.
Ask. Yeah.
Yeah. So you, Mary, are doing a group around one of my very favorite parenting groups, No Drama Discipline. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that group?
Yeah, we're doing a parenting group and using the No Drama Discipline workbook, which is working on, like, you're looking at your triggers as a parent, you're looking on what's a can't and what's a won't. You're really focusing on attuning to brain states, and it's really, the group really gives parents a chance to be as humanly possible and really work examples. So like, this occurred, and then if we're applying these skills, exactly what it looks like. And the parents do a really beautiful job of taking care of each other. And they're noticing, like, I tried this tool and this part worked and this part didn't, and people are just like cheering them on. So they get that reparative experience of, I mean, you're not exactly parenting in front of people, but like, you get to make a parenting mistake in public and people just think you're phenomenal.
I love that. And I love no drama discipline. I feel like it's one of the few things out there that really does effectively work really well for kids that do not have necessarily a lot of adverse experiences behind them, and for kids who do have a lot of adverse experiences. And I feel like that is a really rare thing, because there's often because it's brain state based and encouragement based. That's the other thing I love about it. And it's, you know, really works on cultivating the yes brain and having a receptive brain. And I think that that's another huge important thing that,
for sure.
So I feel like I could talk to you forever. I know. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.